I've always had an interest in buildings and the built environment. I was destined to be an architect for much of my childhood. We've got all these cold, drafty buildings in the UK. They're all running on gas. We need to get the gas boilers out, we need to put heat pumps in, and we need to enable that transition in a way that doesn't increase people's energy bills. We need to build relationships with installers. That is the way that we're looking to scale. And ultimately, we want to be mitigating 10 million tons of CO2 per year. There's a huge limitation in our labour workforce. A lot of them are sort of due to retire. We need to make it more attractive for new people to come into the industry. And so having solutions that can create more attractive working conditions for installers. I'm really excited to see if we can find some way of collaborating on projects with some of the rest of the cohort in the future.
Welcome to Accelerating to a Better Future, where we explore the journeys of founders for the Better Future Retrofit Accelerator by Imperial College, London. I'm Lydia, a banker turned entrepreneur, blending finance and passion. I'm on my own journey in carbon finance to scale carbon removal. And I share impactful stories of founders and entrepreneurs through my own content creation passion. It's an honor to be here for this podcast. Today, we have Max here, the founder of VundaHaus. Welcome, Max, to the podcast.
Great to be here, Lydia.
If you can introduce VundaHaus to us and our audience.
So at VundaHaus, we are using 3D automated design and prefabrication to create a scalable way to transform cold, drafty homes to be warm, healthy, and zero emission. And we're aiming to do that in just 2 days.
Oh, that's super cool. It's like a wonderful solution because it's cheap, it's fast, it's efficient. So what inspired you to do this at the beginning?
I wanted to do something in the climate tech space. We've got all these cold, drafty buildings in the UK. They're all running on gas. We need to get the gas boilers out. We need to put heat pumps in, and we need to enable that transition in a way that doesn't increase people's energy bills, and it gives them more comfort and a more healthy environment in their homes. So we need to reduce the energy demand of those properties.
We'll get to that when we get to the main session of the podcast. But first, I want to know you a little bit more. We have this section about two truths and a lie about your climate journey. So tell me the two truths and a lie, and I will guess the wrong one.
Yeah, so I had a bit of fun with it. So I tried to not make it too easy.
Yeah.
So first one is I have a PhD in metallurgy.
Okay.
I first met my co-founder in a sauna.
Okay.
I was once arrested at a climate protest.
It all sounds true to me, but I would take the first one.
Do have a PhD.
You do have Well, tell me. I know that you met your co-founder in Carbon 13.
Yes.
But maybe you met him before in the sauna.
No, I did meet him in Carbon 13 in the Venture Builder program.
Yeah.
So
it's not in the sauna.
So it wasn't in a sauna. So yeah, there's the lie.
Everyone has their own story in becoming a climate passionate person. But here we are. So you have the VundaHaus, you have the perfect solution for things that you're passionate about. So maybe you can tell us, what was the spark moment of you starting VundaHaus?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do something in climate, hence applying to join the Carbon 13 Venture Builder. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I've always had an interest in buildings and the built environment. I was destined to be an architect for much of my childhood before I took a different path fairly last minute.
Yeah.
And it was really a lunchtime conversation walking with a friend while I was finishing my thesis and talking about the state of our buildings in the UK. We were just reflecting on the fact that someone needed to do something.
Yeah.
And clearly there were approaches for making buildings more energy efficient and removing gas boilers, but they weren't happening at scale. So what was needed was a solution that could scale, and those barriers and the reasons why people weren't adopting insulation and heat pumps needed to be addressed.
Yeah, which is why you are now doing it. I'm very curious about the destined to become an architect part.
Always had an interest in buildings and churches since like
Okay.
big buildings, like particularly churches. Like my parents would always say, joke that I was interested in going and looking at a ding dong,
Okay.
which is what I called churches when I was very young.
But it all works
Yeah.
out. Now you're helping the architects and
Well,
also making an
exactly.
impact at the
Yeah.
same
So
time.
gone full circle.
Yes.
And
So I know that you have a material engineering background. How did that shape your vision for VundaHaus?
from a materials perspective, buildings are quite complex beasts in terms of having a layup of different materials. Often you don't know what's there originally. Um, but the most common approaches for insulating buildings involved sort of fossil fuel derived products like plastic foams,
Mhm.
which are added either externally or internally. And they have all sorts of problems in terms of they're cheap, which is great,
Yeah.
and they're easy to transport and they're quite easy to work with, which is why installers like them. But the downside is that they don't allow moisture movement often out of the building or from inside or from outside, and that can introduce problems further down the line. And also their longevity is not great. They can't they're not durable products, and in certain types of foam can lose performance over the years. So really, there needed to be a more sustainable materials
Material.
being used, and
Yeah.
ones that would last 60 or 100 years.
Your solution is like 60 to 100 years.
Yes, we want to design something that could be maintained indefinitely.
Oh, that's cool. So it's dramatically increase the use life of the material, and also make it more efficient
Mm.
in a way. I think you've talked about what inspired you to work in the clean tech space.
Yes, I mean, for me, the focus on clean tech, it's about sustainability and it's also about social justice. And I think without tackling those two pressing issues, the human race's time on this earth is limited.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and we
exactly.
see that everywhere, from like millionaires flying around in private jets while people in homes in the UK during winter are having still to choose between heating and eating, which is just one of these things in our society that needs to change. We can't keep letting the wealthy pollute and do unsustainable things and not allow other people to even have the basics of life.
Yeah, a lot of the times I think it's a product problem. Like consumers are willing to pay if you give them a good product to use and a sustainable, better product. And that's what we are all trying to do, I think, for you especially. So you've been part of the Unaunted Retrofit Accelerator. What's been the most surprising and unexpected benefit for you at being part of this program?
Always with these sort of cohort programs, it's the other people in the cohort who you meet as part of it, and you never sort of apply to join. Like that's never the plan, is to like who you're going to meet, but it always ends up being the most valuable thing in my experience. So
Yeah.
like other founders with amazing innovations for the built environment who I've met, and more established businesses as well, which are trying to adopt innovation or trying to do innovation themselves. And I think those relationships going forward are going to be most valuable. And I'm really excited to see if we can find some way of collaborating on projects with some of the rest of the cohort in the future.
Yeah, it's like a concentrated vertical in the built environment. So everyone is working in this. So you will be able to find people to build a collaboration and make more synergy
Yeah,
together.
there's really not that many retrofit startups around.
Yeah.
So, well, there are more and more, but it's still a bit of a novelty to have. I can't remember
24.
how there are 24 in
24
one
here.
room.
Yeah. That's amazing. So tell us about the benefit that retrofitting can bring for installer partners while aiming to drive down the costs for property owners. Because that's your main goal, right? You wanted to, everyone should be able to have these.
Yes. Well, the current way of conventional installation methods can take up to 2 weeks of labor days. And I mean, imagine if you're up on the scaffolding of a building in the cold and the wet, and you're spending 2 weeks up there to do one property. It's not a scalable approach,
No.
and it's not very profitable for these installers either. And we've got a huge shortage of labor force in the sort of installer retrofit sector.
Yeah.
So we need solutions that are quicker to install, because we want to make those installers' jobs easier, and we want to make them more profitable. And we also want to pass on some of those savings to the end customer and make the products cheaper for them.
So it's a solution for the whole value chain, basically. Everyone who's involved in the projects and the end users can all benefit from this.
There's a huge limitation in our labor workforce. A lot of them are sort of due to retire in the next few years, and we need to make it more attractive for new people to come into the industry. And so having solutions that can create more attractive working conditions for installers, like let's have more jobs in the sort of, with our solution, it's more jobs in the sort of design and prefabrication stage, and less work having to happen on the building up a scaffold, or however it might be.
So it's actually the perfect time to bring the new type of labor to the market, while the other, like the elderly generation of the labor force is retiring at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. You touch upon about the social benefit a little bit. What does it mean for large communities, social housing tenants? How much quicker is it than using traditional construction methods, and what does that mean in terms of less disruption to occupants?
In terms of impact, insulating a property, installing a heat pump, and maybe some renewables as well, it can completely transform the experience of the tenants. Obviously, I'm going to say that the sort of fabric improvements to the property are the linchpin to enabling those benefits for the occupant. So we want to ensure that when we take out a gas boiler and put in a heat pump, we're at the same time we're improving the thermal efficiency of that property, stop it leaking so much heat, so that their energy bills come down, and they can afford to live more comfortably and heat their rooms to more comfortably and more healthily. Because often colder homes have poor indoor air quality. They suffer from issues of damp and mold. And we're fitting insulation externally. So that in the first instance is ensuring we don't have to go inside the home very much at all. Potentially only if we're replacing windows and doors at the same time. And then we aim to complete a job within 2 days. We're not quite there yet, but that's on our sort of that's our North Star metric, and we believe that we can get there with the type of solution that we're working on.
I'm curious if you can imagine that you're taking me to like work with you for a day, like we're going to somebody's home to do this. Like how does it happen? Just if you can walk me through the process.
So there's a lot of planning that happens before we get to site. If I was to say if you were a customer, you might be a social landlord, and you're looking at which properties you want to get treated. We can use a 3D scan on a neighborhood level, so fairly low dimensional accuracy, but we can use that, or even just street view, to identify the properties that are suitable for our solution. And once we've selected those, we can give a price and we can sell it on that basis in a sort of per square meter estimate. And then from that quotation, we will then once we know we're doing the job, we can do a 3D scan. And that is sort of the one point of truth we use throughout the rest of the process. So we will send someone to visit the property, and they will do a 3D LiDAR scan of the exterior of the property.
Yeah.
And that gives us a point cloud, which we can then use to draw up a 3D model of that property. And we use software then to automate the configuration of our thermal envelope wrap. And that selects which components we need and configures them onto the outside of the property to create that thermal envelope, which then goes to our cut list, our fabrication list. We package it up, and so you as the installer will receive a package like imagine getting a piece of furniture from IKEA, like a Billy bookcase.
Oh, okay.
And so that arrives on site, and with the tools and the bits you need to install it, and the instructions, and you can put that together in a very straightforward way, with a little bit of pre-training on how the system works.
How long do you think that this will improve take-up of improvements by existing social tenants?
Yes, I do. I think that social landlords are looking for solutions actively in this space. I think they're not all entirely sold on the current solutions that are out there. And we're seeing a lot of issues with the time it takes to install and the unpredictability. And quality control is a real issue as well. So we are focused on delivering for social landlords. We have a lot of social landlord potential customers who are signed up to our feedback group, and we speak with them regularly to understand exactly what they're looking for and how we can solve their problems with what we're creating.
Yeah. So in terms of you touch upon that the next iteration. What's the next for VundaHaus? Like a sneak peek into any exciting projects that's coming up.
So closer to home, like you can't develop a retrofit product in a vacuum.
No.
You need to test it on projects. And we fortunately do have funding already secured for our next pilot project, which is going to be this towards the end of this year or early next year, and that's going to be in South Yorkshire. We know that much already, and we have some potential clients who are looking at which properties we could select for that. But if there's anyone listening who knows a landlord in South Yorkshire who'd be interested in having a partially funded pilot project, then on one of their stock, then do get in touch, and we'd be very interesting to have the conversation.
Yeah, be the first mover in the social landlord space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of these improvements takes time. So we have a question actually: how can startups like yourself prioritizing operational carbon savings now instead of in the future?
There's certain new technologies that we're going to need to hit net zero, but there's also a lot of technologies that exist already that aren't being adopted for various reasons, and that might be because they're too expensive or because they're not scalable enough, they're not attractive enough simply to consumers. So I think a lot of work needs to be done to make, particularly with retrofit, to make retrofit sexy.
What technology you have in mind that's existing but not being adopted at the moment?
Well, heat pumps, very mature technology. They work 100% of the time if installed correctly, but there's not limited uptake. There's a lot of disinformation going around, a lot of misunderstanding around what they are and what they do. But that's just a prime example of we have the solution. Why is it not getting adopted? And sort of tackling that problem is the adoption end of the business is really key. I think it's not just about developing new materials, new technologies, although that is also very important. And ultimately, we want to be doing 10,000 properties per year
Oh,
across Europe. We need to build relationships with installers, and that is the way that we're looking to scale. And ultimately, we want to be mitigating 10 million tons of CO2 per year. And so,
that's great.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's too close to some of the other.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's a good goal to have. Let's do something fun. We're gonna go through a lightning round. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Who would you most like to collaborate with in the climate tech space and why?
probably Octopus Energy.
Octopus, yeah.
I'm really excited about what they've been doing. So, Greg Jackson, if you're listening, get in touch.
Yeah, we'll make sure that it gets to him. Yeah. What's your favorite podcast about climate tech?
That would be Zero Ambitions podcast, and that's about retrofit and the built environment.
Yeah.
3 really amazing presenters, always have really interesting guests on. And if you're in the retrofit space, it's the one to listen to, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll try to make this one as your next favorite next time.
Yeah.
Who inspires you in the sustainability space?
Firstly, I have to say other founders. I'm fortunate to know many through being part of Unaunted, Carbon 13, and also the Better Futures Retrofit Accelerator, which we're talking about today. Really inspiring people, and just incredible the amount of drive. And I'm really inspired whenever I meet with
people who work in climate.
Other people working in climate.
Yeah. I think everyone is doing in their power like what they know the best for the climate in a way. What is your go-to productivity hack?
Well, I'm an avid user of Notion.
Oh, same. I love to use. I love Notion.
So I do all my note takings on Notion, and I use the tasks function as well.
Okay.
Tasks and projects. That's really great.
Yeah. We'll go back to the accelerator. What's the highlight of the accelerator for you?
The highlight of the accelerator, it has really been meeting those other co-founders, as I was just talking about. Aside from that, we've also been able to take on an intern this summer, Ben, who's been absolutely brilliant. He's been on site with us in South Wales on our demonstrator. He's been solving problems for us around we've just taken this Virgin Media box off the front of the building. How do we put it back on now? These things that you don't quite plan for when you're doing lab-based.
Good job, Ben, if you're listening.
So well done, Ben. We've got him for another few weeks, and really excited to see what he's gonna do. So that the funding came through from the accelerator and Imperial to be able to take him on this.
That's great. One last question. It's okay if you don't have an answer. If VundaHaus had a theme song, what would it be?
I have absolutely no idea.
We will crowdsource the idea. After people listen to this podcast, if you think of a theme song for VundaHaus, please let us know. Leave a comment.
It might have to be something German.
Yes, okay.
Because of the German connotations.
Yeah.
But
But that's
I'm stumped by that question, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but we only need a theme song for our passion. So thank you again for being on the podcast. You're our first guest for this season of Accelerating to a Better Future.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and to you, wonderful listeners. We're signing off from Imperial College London's Hub of Innovators at Scale Space, and we appreciate you tuning in. The Better Futures Retrofit Accelerator is supported by the Greater London Authority's Better Futures program, co-funded by the UK government through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. In the face of climate change, we are undaunted. For more amazing updates of our events and activities, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn and X, and of course, go tell a friend. This is me, Lydia, and thank you for listening to Accelerating to a Better Future.